Hey, this is Josh Walters from Windy Cape Studios, welcoming you to the International Association of Wood Carvers.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the International Association of Wood Carvers. Today is the 10th of May, 2025, if I could speak. A little bit after 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Thank you all for coming in once again today to join us on this episode of the International Association of Wood Carvers. Today on our meeting, we've got Joshua Walters coming back from Windy Cape Studios. He's going to be doing a demonstration on carving a whimsical house out of cottonwood bark. So we look forward to hearing what he's going to be sharing with us. Tell you a little bit about some classes that are coming up. I haven't mentioned those in the last couple of meetings, so I want to make sure I do that. If you check out Wood Carving Academy, once again, you can subscribe out there and take classes at your own rate, at your own time, whenever you want to. There's a lot of recorded classes that have been put out there in the past by some fantastic instructors. If you're looking to learn and progress in your wood carving, that's my recommendation, is to go out and take those classes out there. It's a monthly subscription, so it's 1 month, 3 months, or a year. And there's all kinds of great classes out there to take. So check that out. If you go out there and you look, there's workshops that are available, and you have to contact the instructor to get signed up for those. Dwayne Gosnell has 2 coming up. One's May the 13th, the other one's June the 10th. Both of those are on caricatures. Again, reach out to Dwayne if you're interested in those. Make sure you do it early enough so that you can get the materials you need to take the class. Again, the next one will be May 13th, which is this week. So you may want to contact him early on that one. Ryan Olson now has a class out there on getting specific. That's on August the 2nd, and it's going to be carving people that you know, celebrities and those kind of things, and how to get specific on carving details that make your carving look like those people. So that should be a great class. Looking forward to that one. And then I saw Dale Green on today. Hello, Dale. He's got one that's coming up October the 4th on sports and holiday shorties. So that's another great class. It's going to be available. Again, it's October 4th. So if you want to sign up for that, reach out to Dale. Reach out to Ryan if you want to sign up for his. Again, great opportunities to learn, not leave the house. You can do it all from here in the comfort of your own home. And go back and rewatch recordings after the class is over. So hopefully some of you all are participating and taking advantage of that. Want to remind y'all about the CCA Carving the Rockies show that's coming up in September. We'll be out there September 20th and 21st, Colorado Springs, Colorado. You hear about this every week when we have these meetings. It's the largest caricature carving show in the world. And we want to try to get as many people out there as we can. There's a school of caricature carving after that show is over. So the school takes place on the 22nd to the 24th. If you're wanting to sign up for that, you need to go out on the CCA website. There's a place there where you can go into the Carving the Rockies, and then you can go down to the School of Caricature Carving and get signed up. There's limited spots. I heard from Chris Hammock this week. These spots are really going fast. I think there's only 30 available. And most of them have already been taken. So if you want to sign up for that, 3 great instructors, get out there, get signed up so that we can see you out there. As far as our meetings go, after this week, several of us are going to be going out to Utah to the Rocky Mountain Carvers Roundup. I'll be out there teaching. I know some other people that are in this meeting will be out there as well teaching. So we won't have meetings for the next 2 Saturdays. Our next meeting will be on the 31st, and Carla Harmon, who I saw came in the meeting a few minutes ago, will be coming on to present for us and talk to us a little bit about her carving journey. So I look forward to that. Dale Kirkpatrick, who is also on our meeting today, is going to be on June the 7th. Greg Weimer is going to be on June the 14th. And Josh Arroyo is going to be coming back on June the 21st. So we've got a pretty good lineup coming up through the middle of June so far, and I've got some other people lined up later in the year. We won't talk about those right now, but they'll be coming up as well. So keep your eye on social media. Make sure you watch out for our schedule and upcoming events, and I'll be sure to share all that out there. Today, before we start our meeting, I wanted to talk a little bit about an auction that we're doing. Because we're having Joshua Walters back in, he's been gracious enough to donate one of these small tool totes like mine here. It's got a Lazy Susan on the bottom. He can tell you more about that, but this is going to be part of the auction, not this one, but a brand new one, as well as a Steve Brown Helvey Signature Series knife. It's autographed by Steve. It's burnt by Rich Smithson, and it's a 2-inch blade, brand new Helvey. So the auction is going to be for both of these items. So high bid will win. We're going to keep this to the lower 48 states. I'm not sure if we have any international people participating today, but because of shipping and costs and things like that, we'll keep it to the lower 48 states. But again, it's for the knife, for the tool tote, and we'll ship that out to the winner on Monday. High bid in the chat will win. I'll call the auction at the end of the meeting, and then we'll gather your information. So whoever wins, I'll need you to stay on at the end, and we'll get your information, get payment information. I'll get that shipped out to you. Having said all that, as usual, we got our friend Dave Stetson on today. He's going to come in and give us words of wisdom to live by. So Dave, I'll go ahead and share it with you.
Hey, thanks, Blake. There's a new one I want to share with you. Most of us are getting to the elderly stage of life. And I'll remind you, you don't retire because you get old. You get old because you retire. So keep carving. It'll keep you young.
That's a fact. No better statement there. You got to keep moving, keep going. Best way to do it is keep carving. So good point, Dave. I appreciate that. Again, on our meeting today, Joshua Walters coming back from Windy Cape Studios. He's been on with us a few times before. He's going to be talking to us about cottonwood bark and carving whimsical houses. I've seen a demonstration with Josh down in Alabama. It's a great demonstration. He's a great teacher. So I look forward to hearing what he's going to share with us today. So Josh, I'll go ahead and turn it over to you. And thanks again for coming on and sharing with us.
All right. Thanks, Blake. Thanks, Dave, for the words of wisdom. And thanks everybody else to joining us today. I started 16 or 17 years ago carving, and I didn't have any clue what I was doing. I had a project in mind, and I started doing some research on carving, and I found Rick Jensen's bark carvings. So Rick Jensen's kind of like the grandfather of cottonwood bark carving, whimsical houses. Stuff that he does is it's off the hook. It's fantastic stuff. He's one of the primary influences, I believe, of Kathy Overcash. Her stuff is really off the hook too. And so I got some tools and I ordered some bark. And I started playing around, and my first whimsical houses, like anybody else's carvings, they weren't very good. But I spent, I don't know, 6 or 7 years kind of doing stuff on my own. And then I had an opportunity to take a class with Rick at Fox Chapel. And Fox Chapel's where Wood Carving Illustrated is produced. And so I went down there, and that's where I met Bob Hershey, who told me about some clubs in the area, the Conewago Carvers and the Lancaster County Carvers. And that's how I started getting involved in taking classes, and then meeting a lot of other great carvers, becoming part of the carving community, the carving family. And it's all just been fantastic journey for me since then. I do a lot more caricature nowadays. I'm really concentrating on faces, expressions, motion, movement, but I always go back to the whimsical houses. In fact, since I started there, and I have probably, well, I've done more caricature than I have whimsical houses over the years. But since I started there and I spent so much time doing that, I actually see a lot of parallels between different styles of carving, because I'm always trying to, I guess it's the nerd in me. I'm always trying to find the answers to big questions. So One of the things that I like to do when I'm teaching is I actually don't just talk about whimsical houses. I talk about other styles of carving and woodworking, and I'm trying to connect dots between different areas of expertise. So I'm gonna do a couple of, can I share my desktop, Mr. Levy?
Just a second. Let me get that for you.
No, the desktop on the laptop.
Yeah, I was trying to get to the share spot. Blake, you got the share on that? Oh,
Yeah, let me get it just a second.
yeah. There you go.
Try it now, Josh. Let's see.
There we go. All right. So as I've mentioned before, I travel and teach Whimsical House. I'm also starting to travel and teach caricature. Gathering of Wood Carvers is an event that's going to be happening this fall, and it will be October 11th, 10th, 11th, and 12th in Yorkville, Illinois. I am one of the instructors for this, as well as Dylan Goodson, Vic Hood, Roger Stegall, Mary McDonough. Did I miss anybody? Yeah. So it's the five of us. This is a great opportunity to take carving class with some phenomenal instructors, or to come out and try Whimsical House with me. So I wanted to give that a little plug here. I have a couple of other classes that are coming up. One will be in North Alabama Wood Carving Association. That's in Huntsville, Alabama. It'll be right around the same time as their show in November. And then the weekend after, I'm supposed to be at Leaper's Fork teaching Whimsical House. So just plug those real quick. And Blake mentioned the tool totes. So I'll just bring up, this is our website, Windy Cape Studios. This is a company that my wife and I started about 4 years ago. And I make bases, plaques, and pedestals for artisans, really, not just wood carvers, but artisans to mount their artwork on. So I have taxidermists, wood carvers, all different types of wood carving. I've had some requests from other types of artisans. These are all our customers. But in addition to that, we also make these wood carving totes. And so this is one of the items that's being auctioned off. This is the 5-gallon version. There's two different versions. There's a 5-gallon and a 2-gallon. And that refers to them fitting inside of a bucket. So you can put a lid on it. You can take it places. It's waterproof, keeps your tools with you at all times. The large one holds about 49 tools. The smaller one holds about 29. And I've had some pretty good feedback on them. I'm making a couple of small adjustments to the large one based on the feedback. So there'll be a new version coming out. If you have one of the old ones, though, that'll work just fine. For if it's working for you right now, the adjustments are not going to make a huge difference in your experience. So this is the front page of the website, and just show you, this is a bird carving by Al Jordan. He's a world champion. Just show you a couple of pictures of stuff that other people have done. Here's a sea turtle by a local artisan up here near Lancaster, Joe Walker. So this is the type, these are some of the offerings that we have in bases. Let's see, just real quick. I wanted to get this out of the way before I get into the other stuff. So we have all different shapes of bases. I can do inlays with basswood. These are kind of popular with caricature carvers. You can put a caricature carving on top of the inlaid piece of basswood. I also do custom stuff. So if there is something that you're looking for, and it does not seem to be loading all the pictures. So I'm just going to go away from that from now. If you have something custom that you want to do, all you need to do is reach out to me and we'll discuss what your needs are. All right, so Mr. Levy, could you go over to my phone? Cool. All right, so here are some carvings that I've done over the years. I just wanted to kind of go over some things about cottonwood with you that I have learned over the years. There's a lot of people that they don't like carving cottonwood. They find it crumbly or dirty or it dulls their tools, so they don't like playing around with it. But there's a lot of really cool stuff you can do with it. So when I first started, I was making houses that were more like this one here. The house is kind of plain. The ladder's kind of cool, but there's not a whole lot of depth or movement in this house. This house is, I don't have a date on it. I probably made this about 12 years ago. I have since graduated to making these houses where I'm employing lots of different design elements. I've got negative space. I've got motion and movement. I'm working on color theory. Cottonwood bark will take oil paints and acrylics pretty well. I don't actually seal them before I put the paint down. I just let it soak up the paint and just continue building up layers. I'll talk more about that towards the end. So there's a lot of great stuff that you can do with cottonwood. One of the things that I find when I am dealing with students is there are a lot of students who want really big pieces of cottonwood. So this piece here, this one here, this is about 15 inches and I don't know, 3.5 to 4 inches wide. I've actually really gotten into doing pieces that are a lot smaller. I buy bark ends, and what a bark end is basically you're trying to fit a piece of cottonwood bark into a shipping box, and you have to cut off the end. And a lot of times they get thrown out. So I will ask suppliers if they will send me boxes of bark ends. And a lot of times they're no bigger than these two pieces right here. So these two pieces, let me take these other pieces out of the way here real quick. These two pieces, I mean, they're 4 to 5 inches tall. In fact, I put this one on a plaque so that when it's next to one of those larger pieces, it doesn't get lost on the wall. And there's a lot that you can do with these. These still have all the same design principles. You got motion and movement, you got negative space, you got different ways of creating interest and creating a really cool piece of artwork. This one, I actually relieved the tree away from the house. So you can do everything that you can do with a large piece of bark with the smaller pieces. It's just, it's kind of like carving a miniature caricature. It takes a little bit longer. It takes some patience and you have to really plan things out ahead of time. So, bark ends are something that you might consider if you order cottonwood bark from a source to ask them if they have them available. In fact, let me go over real quick where you can get cottonwood bark, since I'm certain that people are going to ask that. So some sources for cottonwood bark are cottonwoodbark.com. They are out of Canada. You have to call them. The last I heard, if you try to order online, it gets lost. I'm not sure if that's still true or not, but I just call them and order bark from them. The Cottonwood Bark Lovers Facebook group. There are a number of people on there selling cottonwood bark all the time. Mark Chamness is one. I just bought bark from him. Don't remember all the other names. Angel King is another one. She's out of Alaska. Mark Chamness is from Colorado. all of your best cottonwood bark actually grows in the northwest of North America. So these are great places to be getting cottonwood bark from. In addition to there's Lowe's Hill Sawmill. Lowe's Hill is spelled Loess, hillsawmill.com. Lowe's Hills Sawmill.com. And he does bark ends by request. And if you don't want to ship it, if you want the bark in your hand before you select it to purchase, the best way to do that is to go to your shows. If there's cottonwood bark there, take a look at it, see if you are comfortable with the price and the pieces, and purchase it there. Now, some things to keep in mind when you are purchasing the bark is that there's good bark and there's bad bark. So here are two pieces of bark, and at first glance, they both look like pretty good bark. They're a decent size, both this way and this way. They're thick enough to work with. You really only need, I don't know, I like working with about 3 inches thick. So this one might be a little bit thin. It's more like 2 inches thick, but I can still get a really nice house out of that. But this piece, when you turn it this way, is completely hollow and delaminated. And so this piece would take a lot of effort to plan out. And there's a real good chance that as you're carving, you might be somewhere in the middle here. And as you carve, you find that hollow space on the inside. So these pieces are significantly more difficult to carve with. If you're just starting out, I definitely don't recommend these. And they are a frustration to anybody who's even experienced with bark carving. It does not mean that you can't carve it. You can definitely do stuff with this. I mean, where this hollow part is, you could actually just go down to that hollow part. Bob Hershey will do things where he has sort of a flat area up here, and he'll actually paint stuff on there. So he'll paint like Santa Claus in a sleigh or a witch on a broom, and do a Halloween house or a holiday house. So that's an idea too. So basically, when you're selecting bark, I mean, besides that, I don't know what to tell you. It's usually sold by the pound. The heavier it feels, the denser it's going to be. It could be harder to carve, but cottonwood bark is typically a lot easier to carve than basswood as far as the strength that you need to get through the material. And your tools also don't have to be as sharp. So that brings me to the conversation about whether or not there's this kind of myth in the community that you need a second set of tools to carve cottonwood bark. I've heard this from numerous students, and I don't agree with that. I think you need a couple of tools, and I'm going to show you what I use. You need a couple of tools basically to get through this outer layer of the bark. Once you are through this outer layer of the bark, this outer layer of the bark is where, I mean, it's dirty. You've got the wind blowing dirt and sand. A lot of times when bark is found, you always get it off of dead trees. If you're trying to get it off of a live tree, one, it'll hurt the live tree. Or if it's a live tree that was felled for some reason, if you're trying to get it off, there's a layer back here between the bark and the tree that has to actually start decaying. It's actually really hard to pry off of the tree. So most bark is found on the ground or on a tree that's been lying on the ground for a while. How people go about finding these is they find landowners that have large cottonwood bark, large cottonwood trees on them, and they get permission to go to the landowner's parcel and basically scavenge for bark. So that's pretty much how all bark is gotten. But I use these 4 tools, 2 different knives, a very large gouge. This is a number 9, and it's a little over an inch, and a large like number 3. This is just slightly under an inch. And then I have a 2.5-inch blade, and there's just a shorter blade. These I use to get through the outer layer. Once you're through the outer layer, you can use your regular tools on what's on the inside of the bark. I've been doing that for years, and I will sit down and I will work on a piece of bark out on my patio, and I will switch over to a caricature at some point during the day. You know, if we're just having one of those lazy days where we're sitting outside because it's gorgeous out and we're carving, I'll switch over to caricature, and I don't necessarily have to sharpen my tools faster. Now, I do keep these 4 tools dedicated to bark, but the rest of my tools I use for any type of carving anytime. It's like anything else, you need to sharpen it. So why do I use the larger tools? Well, I like to move wood quickly. And there's also a trick that I like to do with this larger knife. Once you have your piece roughed out, so here's a piece that I am roughing out right now. Once you have your piece roughed out, the reason why I have this larger knife is I like to create instances where I basically carved myself into a corner on these whimsical houses. Sometimes I need to take a sliver of wood, you know, underneath and through. So a long knife is very useful for that. The other thing with the long knife is I can tell angles by exaggerating things. So I can lay this knife down on a part of the carving, and I can actually start seeing if I'm creating the movement that I want that makes these whimsical houses, that sets these whimsical houses off from a carving of a normal house. Okay, because these whimsical houses, there should never be a straight line in these. My philosophy for making these is I do like to carve houses that are, let me grab this one carving that I already showed you. I like to make houses that could be built, but out of 10 builders, 9 of them are going to look at me like I'm nuts, and the 10th one will just say, cool, let's do it. So you notice on this house, it's kind of like a townhouse. It's got 2 stories. It's got a roof line with an attic up here. But there's nothing straight on this. I've got one line going this way, the other one curving off this way, same up here. The other thing that I do with these is if this represents your house and the 2 stories, I like to create interest and movement by twisting the various layers of the house. So I do that on a lot of my houses, especially when I get multiple layers. So this knife actually lets me see, because it exaggerates it. Let me see if I can do this way. It kind of exaggerates how much the angle you have is. So you can see going from this level of the house to this level that I've now, this level of the house down here is actually sloping away compared to this level. So I'm creating that movement, I'm creating that whimsy in the house, and this tool here is helping me do that. All right, so I promised the demo. So I'm going to get into the demo. Let me move my camera here so that I can get into this and show you a little bit better. So I'm going to use this piece here, and this is a bark end. I mentioned, you know, this would fit into a box for shipping, and this would be the part that got cut off. So this is a very large bark end. So there's a lot that we can do with this, but I am going to create just a simple house, but back here, I'm going to try and set up for a tree. So the large gouge is usually where I start, and some lines. As far as marking on bark, chalk works. Okay, so you can get chalk pencils. This is a chalk pencil that Lori, my wife, is a carver, or not a carver. She's a quilter. So Lori's a quilter. This came from like Joanne Fabrics, which I realize is I think they're going out of business right now, but you can get it from Hobby Lobby, Michael's, Amazon, a couple other places. So chalk will work, and so will a Sharpie on the outside of the bark. Now, the outside of the bark will ruin Sharpies pretty quickly. So when you buy Sharpies to do this, buy a bunch of them. So the reason why I use the big gouge is I like to move wood quick. I want to find what's underneath of the bark. There's a lot of people who want a bark carving to look like bark. I want you to know that it comes from a piece of bark, but I don't want it to look like a piece of bark. If you carve the other way, you know, that's fine. I've worked with carvers who do that. It is absolutely fine if that is if that is how you like to carve, and I will help you in my classes with your bark carving. But I like to find a carving that's down inside of this. So what I'm doing here is I'm just starting the roof line. And then I'll come over here and I'll find where the house is. Like I said, this is a pretty simple house, but you notice how I can move a lot of wood pretty quickly. If pieces come off, I usually tell my students not to worry about pieces coming off. And this is the complaint, that it flakes off. I don't really care. I'm going to run with the design change, really. And that's what I kind of encourage my students to do. Don't get so locked into a design that if the bark flakes off or breaks off. Now, I mean, if it's integral.
Hey, Josh, real quick, can we pull that? Your hat's blocking the side of that, so we can pull that camera up just a little bit. Or, sorry, just wanted to see what you're doing.
Actually, let's try this. We'll bring this down. Bring it closer to the carving. Yeah. And then my head's right here by the camera.
There you go. Looks good. Thank you, brother.
All right, so obviously, if you break off a piece that's really important, go ahead and glue it back on. But I have experienced students who have wanted to use a lot of CA glue to put bark back, or they find a piece of bark that's maybe flaking on the outside and they want to soak it with CA glue. Don't do that. That'll actually dull your tools. It's harder to carve through. I picked a piece that's nice and dense. I'm really good at this. The last demo that I did, I had a piece of bark that was kind of gummy. Basically, like, rather than cut, it was compressing. And it wasn't because my knife wasn't sharp. My knife was sharp. So now I picked the dense piece. I like carving bark because it's a challenge and each piece is different. Even if I have a design in mind, I may get into a piece and decide to change the design partway through. It's just how bark goes. I make from bark ends, I make a lot of Santa Clauses. The reason why I like making Santa Clauses is because if I make Santa Clauses from a block of wood, let's say I do it off the corner, one of those triangular pieces, I will have a tendency to make the same Santa Claus 12 times in a row. When I use bark ends, I have to fit the Santa Claus into the piece of bark. So I might end up with similar Santa Clauses, but each one has, you know, it's different. It's got different personality. It's got, it might be more of a challenge to lay it out. You have to figure out where the beard goes, where the hat goes. Maybe the hat's going to be different on one compared to the other. Maybe you can fit a pipe into his mouth on one and another one you can't. So, okay. Well, unfortunately, when you're roughing out, it's kind of like watching paint dry because it takes a while for the carver to actually get to the point where you start seeing what it is that they're trying to do. What I'm doing here is I'm trying to find the roof line. So I'm trying to find two roof lines. This is the front of the house, and this will be some sort of a base. Back here somewhere, I need to find more of a tree, maybe an actual tree trunk. I will tell students that when they are doing this, not to try and find their final form. I'm doing a simple house, so basically I'm trying to make a triangle with a square or a rectangle underneath, and then I'm trying to find a spot for the trunk for a tree, and then a circle up here for some leaves. The whimsy, the movement comes later once you've found all that. So I'm starting with the form, and it's just like any other type of carving. If you start with the form and you figure out the form first, this is just this is a Denny soft B. This is also a really good tool to have. These are kind of hard to come by. But there's a number of manufacturers making soft V's now because they're so popular. This one's just nice because for bark, it's got this nice long handle and you can kind of get behind it. So you're not trying to find your final form as you're roughing out. What you want to do is you just want to find those initial shapes. And the reason why you find those initial shapes is because the whimsy and the movement that you create afterwards is a matter of tweaking things, really. In a lot of cases, I'll take a piece and I might just shave a little bit off, and that's all that's needed to get to where I want to go. Okay, so let's do this. I want this roof line to come down further. By the way, when you're roughing out, it does help to have long sleeves on like I have right now. And some people also like to have a leather glove in this hand, in addition to the Kevlar glove in this hand. And that is because the exterior of the bark will really chew up the insides of your arm. I don't always do this, but when I remember to do it, I thank myself.
Joshua, do you ever
Hey.
sell any of your cottonwood bark carvings?
I do. I don't sell as many of these because I'm keeping a lot of them as demo pieces for shows. So what ends up happening is that I will carve a bunch when I know that I'm doing classes. And usually it's students who end up purchasing. Because when I'm at shows, usually the ones that are there, if somebody wants to buy them, I need them as demo pieces for the classes. And that's just because right now in my carving journey, I'm trying to spend more time on caricature. I do find that Whimsical House kind of allows me to, it's almost like unplugging. It gives me some time to just kind of doodle and discover things without there's no worries. Like, you know, if you're doing a caricature and you're trying to figure out where the leg goes or the arm goes or something, or if the expression's going to turn out right. If you're trying to figure out something new, sorry, my phone was ringing. If you're trying to figure out something new, it's, you know, it's kind of a chore. Whereas with this, it's just like, you know, I'm just going to see what happens. And if I don't like it, I'll just change it. I mean, you could do the same thing with caricature too, but since I've done this longer, I guess I'm more confident with this style. And I can rough these out pretty quickly, although usually goes faster if I have a piece that is not this hard. This really is a hard piece of wood. I'm having deja vu to that demo I did in North Alabama, Blake.
Yeah, but just remember that piece turned out fantastic. So you just got to keep going.
All right, so as you can see, I'm starting to create walls all the way around. I've got something that can be a trunk. Leaves can go up here. So what I want to do now is I want to find where this roof line is. So maybe I'll have the tree go through the roof line. The other thing that I can do is I can start thinking about negative space. So on a lot of these carvings where I put trees in, what did I do with that other piece? There it is. With a lot of these pieces where I'm putting trees in, I'm creating negative space. And that just adds a lot of depth to your carving. Now, one of the things that, like this carving here, this up here will be the tree leaves. It doesn't leave much of the house showing. One of the things that I will do is as I start getting more and more detail for this tree, I will start exposing more of the house. So one of the things that I do have, that I do for myself and have my students do, is I have you create large blocks of area that you're going to work on. And this goes back to not trying to find the final form before you've gotten a form to start with. So this house, I've started curving the outside walls. I don't know how well you can see that, but I've started curving the outside walls. So I'm starting to get the whimsy into it. The roof line is definitely very whimsical because it's curving around and doing all kinds of things. This chimney is twisted. But you notice the chimney's still a block. And I can still take this block and I can turn it into a circular chimney, or I can turn it into brick or stone later. But for right now, I wanted to see what a twisted chimney would look like. And actually, I kind of like that, so I will probably keep that. And I really like how this roof line I mean, you see how much motion there is in that roof line going not only this way, but this way. So that's what we're trying to achieve. Now, as far as creating negative space goes, a trick from caricature carving that I learned from Mr. Stetson is the enormously long drill bit. So if I'm going to create negative space, I find a spot where I'm going to go, and I can use this to figure out my angle of attack. Now on this carving, it's not that big of a deal. I'm just going to go straight through, and I'll do that in a couple of places, but this drill bit really helps figuring out if you've got the right angle as you're drilling through, which is very useful, like on the carving that I just had over here. So what I'll do here is I'm just going to dig this out. You could use like a number 9 or a number 11. I'm going to do it with my knife because you can always use multiple tools to do the same thing typically. And a principle here to keep in mind, which follows through on just every other type of carving too, is when you are creating a separation between two elements, make certain that you carve both of those elements. Otherwise, you'll make one really skinny. You lose too much wood on one side and not the other. Since I'm showing you the back of this, just a note on these. I would, this is a kind of flaky stuff that's usually on the back of bark. See how that just kind of peels off? I would take this off, but I would not flatten the piece of bark. Piece of bark is curved like this. When we get to a certain point where we're putting in doors and windows, we'll actually hollow the back side of this. And because we're hollowing the back side of it and we're leaving this circular, if it sits on a shelf or hangs on a wall, light will come in from the back and shine through through the holes that go through it. So I don't flatten my pieces unless I'm doing an in the round piece, which that's a topic for a different day. There are ways of putting bark together so that you can do in the round pieces. So now I've separated the house from the tree trunk, but I still think it would be interesting to maybe bring the roof line down and actually have the tree trunk go through the house. So the way that I'm going to do that is I'm just going to come up to here and I'm going to start shaving the tree trunk down. And I'm going to find the edge of that roof line. And one of the things with this, I mentioned this earlier, is you don't always have to take a lot of wood to get what you're trying to do. So I just separated it so that the roof line can go past the tree. By the way, cottonwood bark is a lot of parallel layers of wood. It has grain like regular wood does, but it's typically, you don't really get figured grain, so you don't have grain changes. So essentially, it's really easy to take a slice like this. It's a little bit harder to go across the grain, but in general, it's a very easy carving wood, unless you get a really dense piece. All right, so there you can see, I've now got the roof line going past the trunk. Now I'll want to bring the trunk out over here somewhere. So I'm gonna make a mark in here where I'm gonna want to bring the trunk back out as if it went through the roof line. I'll maybe establish the eaves to the roof line. And when I do this, I'm going to leave a lot of meat right here because I'm going to be tweaking what the roof line looks like. There's a whole lot that you can do with this area right here for interest in your carving. You can put windows, you can put timber framing, different things. You do textures. Cottonwood bark will power carve beautifully, especially if it's denser, and it takes texturing very well. I was in a Vic Hood class this last weekend, and there was a student there who said that he hated cottonwood bark, and a bunch of us were like, why? Vic had a number of just fantastic realistic busts that he had done with cottonwood bark because it takes detail really well. Now he does that all with hand tools, but you can also do it with power. When I teach, if I have enough time, I usually bring power to kind of demonstrate what the difference would be. I don't actually do power in the classes because it can get really dirty really quickly. It's best if you're going to use power to have a dust mask on as well as a dust collector. Because you definitely don't want to breathe this stuff. It's like any other type of wood. You don't want to breathe it. So here I'm bringing that tree trunk out, separating it from the roof line. I'm just using this soft V to kind of bring that out. And I'm going to kind of step back here a second and just make certain that that tree trunk is going kind of the same way, and it is. So here, to bring this tree trunk out, I'm going to maybe start finessing the roof line. This is where this number 3 will come in handy. So I can take this roof line and I can start getting my whimsy in it. I can start getting that motion that I'm looking for, and I can bring this tree trunk out more. So I'm still just kind of blocking. What I'm doing with the roof line is a little bit closer to the final form, but I'm still mostly sticking to sort of an initial form on the house. Still just got a rectangle, a block, a circle, a triangle. Now, if I was to start going into the details, I think this house would be cool to have maybe some timber framing. So if we put like a timber frame there, we could do another one up here. What else would we do? This roof line needs to come down more. I always like to separate the roof if we do timber framing. This really long knife really comes in handy. This is a deep holler knife. I don't know if he's making knives right now. But if you can find a longer knife for this type of carving, it's really helpful. You see, I can start shaping a roof line really quickly with this knife just by sliding it along. The other way to shape it is with this number 3. And with whimsical houses, you know, your roof lines, you don't want them to be flat. Don't want them to look like a normal house. Remember, you want that 10th builder that says, cool, this is a challenge, and you don't want the other 9 builders building your house for you here. So now you can see I'm getting, with this roof line, I'm getting 2 different slopes. And that's kind of on purpose. I'm creating a little bit more interest. And I haven't decided if I'm going to do shingles or not. There's many different ways to do shingles. You can also do thatching. You can also put repairs in the roof to create some interest. I like doing that on occasion. Make it look like an older house that had a hole in the roof that somebody came along and fixed. So I got 2 different slopes. Let's see. I exaggerate it with the knife, just like I talked about earlier, so you can see the difference. There's 2 different slopes there. Then the other thing that I will do is I will take this knife, and to start getting that whimsy, I'm going to slice just a little bit. I'm going to start curving this roof from front to back. And it just takes a little bit to get this going. I don't know how well that'll show up in the camera here, but it just takes a little bit, and you can start seeing that roof is now starting to show from the front of the house a lot better right there. So we can come down here and we can do the same thing with the bottom part. So we got compound angles going, and we started in 1 dimension by scalloping this way, and now we're doing it this way. So down there, you can now start seeing how there's more of the roof here starting to show from the front of the house. Okay, so how are we doing on time?
We are coming right up on the 4 o'clock hour.
Okay, well, hopefully this is giving you some ideas about how to set up a good whimsical house. What I'd like to do is kind of switch a little bit from this roughing out, because I will spend a lot more time roughing this out and getting it to the point where I'm happy with it. But I'd like to talk a little bit about how you finish these before we have to wrap up today's session. So there's a lot of other things that I would go over in a class, or we can do another International Association episode. I would go over like how to make stairs, how to do the shingles, doors and windows, how to start putting detail and texture into these, how to do the texture on the trees. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over to some finished products and talk a little bit about how I did them. Let me move the camera here real quick. Biggest thing when doing these, I think, is don't be afraid to remove material. Really get deep down in and move material, create interest by not being afraid. If a piece pops off, just run with the design change if you can. I think it teaches you to be a better carver when you do that. So let's talk about these 3 finished ones, okay? So as far as finishing is concerned, I mentioned that bark will take oils and acrylics really well. Now, the traditional finish that I think maybe Rick started, I don't know who started it, but the traditional finish is a shoe cream. So this is Kelly's shoe cream. Here's money's worth and best. it's shoe polish. And you get yourself the cheapest bristle brush from like Hobby Lobby. And this one, it was longer. I cut the bristles off. And what you do is this is basically a wax. So all you're going to do is you just come in here and you rub it in, and you keep rubbing it in until it's kind of pasty. You keep rubbing it in until that goes away. I also keep shoe shine brushes to help rub it in. Now, this does bring the sheen up a little bit, not much, but this will give you as close to a natural finish on bark as is possible. And bark does come in different colors. If you've ever heard of like Montana gold, it's a bark that's kind of a yellowish gold color. It's really beautiful. Then there's sort of these other colors that are kind of dull, but you're just rubbing that in with a bristle brush. So that's one way of finishing it. These are done with acrylics. Actually, no, this one's done with oil and this one's done with acrylics. You get basically the same sort of finish from it. As I mentioned earlier, I don't seal the wood before I start putting the paint on. I just let it soak up the paint. It's not like basswood where if you put the paint onto the wood, it can wick to another spot on the wood. It will move around a little bit on the wood, but it's not like if you put green here, it's going to show up here. So I don't seal it. It is something that I should try doing, but one of the reasons why I don't seal it is because I mentioned earlier, I do like you to know that it is from cottonwood bark. So I leave some areas like here and along the bottoms of the roof lines, sometimes the bottoms of the siding. I leave some areas, here's on the tree, where it's the natural bark, but I'm still finding the carving inside of the bark. This piece has a little bit less, but I've still got on the edges, I've got on the roof line, I've got down here on the tree. I have actually started treating these more like paintings, where the carving is my canvas. You'll see, like on stones, I build it up. I use some cool colors down at the bottoms of the stones and in the crevices. And this is all, intentional. I use some Payne's gray down in these areas. And then I layer up some grays on top, and then I'll dry brush some white. And then I'll come back and I'll paint some moss. You can't see the moss in there, can you? All right, there's a little bit better. I actually do have moss painted there. I'm just looking over at my computer and you can't tell that, but on the trees, I do the same thing. I start out with cool colors and then I start building up warmer colors on the top. When you look at a tree, one of the things to think about is trees aren't really green. I mean, they're green, but they have pops of other colors, especially when the wind is blowing, the season. So I like to start with these cool colors for the shadows. I start building up warmer colors, some yellows, some greens, and then I'll put in little pops of orange and red. And I don't know that you can tell that there are pops of orange and red in there. Let me bring it up closer. So yeah, so you can see right like there's some orange and some red. But when you look at it from afar, you start seeing different layers of leaves. Now, all of this is stylized to make the leaves. Basically what I do is I would carve with a knife. I come in here and I carve different levels of clumps of leaves. So it's kind of like carving hair. Hair's always in groups. Leaves are always in groups. So you create groups of leaves They're roughly round in shape, but you don't want them to be perfectly round. And once I've separated different groups, I come back in, I paint the shadow lines and then build up the colors from there. To get some more depth into it, this is one place where I will use power on a regular basis. You can do it with a gouge. It just goes a lot faster with power. And what you're going to do is you're going to use if I can find it. You just use a little ball head like that. And you're just making divots to make the leaves as you go around. Once I'm done painting, and I'll use light washes to create stains to separate the house. This is stained a different color than the tree is. I'll do some dry brushing. And antiquing. So what I would do at the very end is I put wax on it. Either the shoe cream. So you wait until the paint is dry. You can use shoe cream. Howard's Feed and Wax is another one that I use. And then as far as antiquing is concerned, you can take a black shoe polish and you can put a little bit of it on a denture brush. And it's just a very little bit. And then you can kind of do this in places to get some darks in different places. I tend to not use this technique as much anymore. I'm tending to actually go in and paint these places where I want them. So are there any questions there on finishing? Any questions on how I was laying things out, the tools that I was using? Where to get
Nothing in the chat, Joshua, other than just requests for you to come back and finish the one you're working on to show the detail part.
Okay, we can do that.
So again, you'll be teaching class, I know, down in Alabama. Is that right?
Yep. In Alabama, I'm doing caricature though. I'm doing caricature candles.
And that, but in Gathering Wood Carvers.
Gathering of Wood Carvers and Leaper's Fork, I'll be doing Whimsical House.
Gotcha.
And I'm talking with a number of other places that I might be doing Whimsical House at. A couple of them are on the East Coast. A couple of them are Midwest. And then there's actually one that's out more like Colorado, Utah area. But we're just talking right now. So there will be opportunities. If you're looking for a class, you can always reach out to me. If your club is interested, reach out to me.
Somebody's asking if you'd be willing to come to St. Louis for a training session.
St. Louis, Missouri?
I'm assuming.
Yeah.
So I'll have Steve reach out to you. Maybe you all can schedule something.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions from the group today? Anybody have anything for Joshua regarding his business or the demonstration? All right. Well, Joshua, as always, I just want to say thank you for coming on and presenting. I appreciate the support that you all have given us as far as the donations for the tool totes and the friendship. I know you and I've met up several times, and I look forward to getting back together down in Alabama in the fall. So that'll be great. Just want to say thank you all for coming on and presenting, and we'll definitely get you on the calendar to have you come back and finish that one up and show some of the details. So thank you for that. I will go ahead and call the auction. Looks like high bid is Steve Botkin. So Steve, if you'll stay in the meeting here at the end, we'll get your information, and I'll get this out to you this week. Want to remind you all, we will not be having a meeting next Saturday or the Saturday after. traveling out to Utah on Friday to teach out there at the Rocky Mountain Carvers Roundup. I'm really hoping that some of you all will be out there to take classes. If you do, come by and say hello. Look forward to meeting a lot of people that I've seen here online but never met in person. So I look forward to that. So make sure you come out, and then we'll meet back up again on the 31st, and I'll advertise this on social media so everybody will be reminded. Carla Harmon will be on the 31st of May, and got a chance to meet her up in Pennsylvania. Look forward to having her come on at the end of the month. So just want to say thank you all again for coming on. This has been the International Association of Woodcarvers, and we will see you all back here on the 31st of May. Thank you all.
Hey,
Nice.
So she's doing it all without you.
Glad you said that before it started recording.
I wasn't going to record till I was waiting to try to catch it. No. Well, hey, we'll do the normal thing of who you are, what you're with, and welcome to International Association of Woodcarvers.
okay, you ready?
We'll do it whenever you want.
See, I told you he was a pro. He's done this so many times.
Yeah, no. All right. Well, good job. I'm not disappointed. Don't have any
Get no
bloopers.
blooper
Okay.
out of that.
That's
No
right. There is no
anywhere. I mean, Dave, you're supposed to interrupt.
blooper.
All right, let me see. Let me pause that.